Clara Beaumont trudged along the sun-baked streets of Red Willow, her wide-brimmed bonnet shielding a face etched with exhaustion and resolve. In one arm she carried a bundle of tattered blankets, the other clutched her two small children, whose bare feet raised soft clouds of dust with each hesitant step. Hunger hollowed their bellies, but Clara walked with a stubborn steadiness that betrayed unusual courage, a quiet fire that had kept her alive through months of hardship since her husband's death. Her voice, trembling yet firm, carried across the empty street, "We haven't eaten, mister." There was desperation in her tone, yes, but also dignity, a refusal to let the world see her broken. From the shadowed porch of the general store, Jack Sullivan watched her approach. A rugged man of the frontier, his weathered Stetson shaded eyes that had seen years of harsh winds, empty trails, and lonely horizons. He had learned to notice bravery, subtle gestures that betrayed heart beneath exhaustion. And in Clara's posture, in the way she guided her children with gentle authority, he saw it, unusual courage, fierce yet tempered by tenderness. Jack's boots crunched over the wooden planks as he stepped forward, reaching for a wicker basket beside him. Inside were a loaf of bread, a small pot of stew, and a portion of dried meat, humble offerings yet enough to sustain them. Clara's hands shook as she accepted the food, children peering curiously at the stranger whose eyes held calm and safety. He gestured toward a shaded bench near the saloon. Clara led the children there, dividing the food with careful hands, each portion measured to conceal scarcity. Jack watched with quiet attentiveness, his presence steady yet non-intrusive. The children, initially wary, began to eat, their small murmurs of delight softening Clara's rigid composure. She realized that in the vast, often cruel frontier, someone had appeared who offered kindness without expectation, protection without domination. Jack, in turn, felt a stir in his chest, a long-dormant desire for connection. In Clara, he recognized resilience matched by vulnerability, strength paired with an openness that tugged gently at a part of him he had thought long dead. Days passed in rhythms dictated by necessity, yet each encounter wove their lives closer together. Jack repaired the children's wagon, adjusted ill-fitting saddles, fetched water and supplies, his hands precise, steady, capable. Clara observed him, noting the small attentions, the patience in his gestures, the way he never lingered unnecessarily yet never withdrew. In return, she revealed her own quiet strength, the meticulous care in mending clothes, the ingenuity in stretching meager rations, the fierce courage that surfaced when danger threatened. Red Willow took notice in whispers, two solitary figures forming an unlikely bond amid dust and sun, but Clara and Jack paid little mind to gossip. Trust grew silently, like saplings in hidden hollows, nurtured by repeated small acts, protection, attentiveness, patience, presence. The first real threat arrived without warning. Shadows flickered at the edge of the valley, rustlers seeking easy prey, eyes glinting with greed. The children played unaware nearby. Clara's heart leapt violently, fear gripped her, but instinct demanded she protect them. Jack stepped beside her, calm and resolute. He positioned himself between the family and the approaching danger, his stance unwavering, ready. The rustlers faltered at the sight of him, hesitation rippling across their faces. Finally, they turned, retreating into the sun-bleached horizon. Clara's relief was laced with awe. She saw courage that did not roar, but acted with quiet certainty, a bravery that protected without spectacle. That evening, the fire crackled near the edge of town, casting amber light across Clara's weary face. The children slept, small chests rising and falling, unaware of the tension that had passed. Clara and Jack sat side by side, separated by a respectful distance, yet close enough for the warmth of the flames to mingle with their presence. Words were sparse, but each glance, each subtle gesture, conveyed understanding. Jack's rugged hands adjusted the blankets around the children, the faintest smile tugging at his lips as he watched Clara's attention to detail. She, in turn, allowed herself a rare moment of relief, leaning just slightly toward him, sensing protection, strength, and the first flicker of something tender. Days became weeks, the rhythm of work and shared survival knitting them together. Jack taught the children to ride, guiding their small hands on the reins, adjusting their saddles with patient care. Clara watched, the wind tugging at her skirts, the dust of the street sparkling in late afternoon sun, her heart softening to a future she had thought impossible. She noticed the way Jack's eyes softened when the children laughed, the small gestures of patience and care that revealed the depth of his character. Trust had blossomed, slow and deliberate, forming the roots of affection neither dared name aloud. One evening, the town's saloon erupted in chaos as news arrived that a band of rustlers had returned, threatening to take what little the townsfolk had. Clara's chest tightened as she gathered the children. Jack's hand hovered near his revolver, then dropped as he met her gaze, nodding reassurance. The two of them moved like a single unit, Clara holding the children close, Jack moving with measured precision, keeping watch, guiding them to safety. In that moment, Clara understood fully the man who had become her guardian and silent partner in survival. She realized the bond they shared was stronger than fear, stronger than loneliness, and it had grown into something precious. The threat passed without bloodshed, the rustlers deterred by Jack's reputation and unwavering stance. Clara exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding, leaning against him slightly as if the touch could anchor the tremor in her limbs. Jack, feeling the soft press of her shoulder, felt a stirring he had not expected, an emotional gravity drawing him closer. Words were unnecessary. The night, the fire, the quiet triumph of survival spoke louder than declarations. For the first time, Clara allowed herself to imagine hope not as fragile fantasy, but as tangible possibility. Jack felt the same, recognizing that the walls he had built around himself were softening, brick by brick, under the patient insistence of shared courage and trust. Days melted into golden afternoons, laughter and whispered conversations, small hands learning to ride, chores shared with quiet understanding. One evening, Jack finally spoke, voice low and gentle, as they watched the sun sink behind the distant mesas. "Clara, you've taught me something I'd forgotten," he said, eyes steady on hers. "That there's courage not just in fighting, but in holding on to hope, to family, to something worth protecting." Clara's lips curved into a tentative smile. "And you've reminded me that even in this world, there's kindness. There's someone willing to stand by you, no matter the storms." Their hands brushed, brief, almost accidental, and yet the gesture carried 1,000 unspoken promises: safety, companionship, and a slowly blossoming love. As the sun dipped fully below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of violet and gold, Clara leaned against Jack, children nestled safely nearby. The fire's glow cast shadows that danced across their faces, a soft warmth wrapping around them like a blessing. Red Willow, dusty and sun-scorched, felt for a moment like home, a fragile sanctuary born from trust, courage, and shared hardship. Jack lowered his hat, resting a hand over hers, the gesture simple yet profound. They did not speak. Words were unnecessary. The bond, tested by hunger, fear, and survival, had grown into love, steady, quiet, and unshakable. The days that followed were filled with subtle joys, teaching the children to ride faster, mending clothes while sharing stories, quiet moments of laughter, and the soft brush of hands in fleeting touches. Clara's heart, once weighted with grief, felt light again. Jack's, long accustomed to solitude, discovered the sweetness of partnership, the strength in allowing someone close, the fulfillment in sharing both labor and life. In the unforgiving Wild West, amid dust, sun, and endless horizon, they had carved out a space of safety, tenderness, and love. And as the night fell over Red Willow, the fire flickering against the wooden facades, Clara looked up at Jack, and he at her, and they shared a silent acknowledgement. The journey had been hard, the world often cruel, yet together they had found hope, laughter, and love. The children stirred in sleep, warm and fed, the wind carried whispers of possibility across the mesas, and the town, hushed in the glow of evening, felt alive with the promise of new beginnings. The story of Clara Beaumont and Jack Sullivan, born from desperation, courage, and gentle perseverance, had reached its first triumphant chapter, a tale of survival transformed into a love that could endure the fiercest storms of the frontier. In the quiet that followed, Clara thought, perhaps aloud only to the night sky, even in the harshest land, even when all seems lost, courage and love find a way. And Jack, watching the stars ignite one by one above the mesas, silently agreed, yes, they always do.